Hi, it's Odeean here. Today I've got the Takara Tomy LG14 Ultra Magnus combined with the X2 Toys XT009 add-on kit. This is not a full review of Ultra Magnus, but really just kind of showcasing how those parts enhance the figure and just to give you an idea of whether you want to spend the extra money to get it or not. I had almost come to giving Ultra Magnus a skip. I liked the base figure and I wasn't sure if it was quite good enough, but with the add-on pieces I felt that it put it over the line. Now as it turns out, having it in hand here, I think it looks pretty fantastic, and I'm pretty sure you would agree with me looking at that. He really does a good job of actually looking like Ultra Magnus, which makes me really glad that I've come back and bought him. Now the parts that I've actually pulled off were mainly the shin pieces here and the inner arms. So I'm going to get them out of the little bag and show you what they used to be. So here's the X2 Toys add-on kit, and it's got a lot of nice little details on there. You can see there's actually pieces with different plastic colors. It's good, I'm happy with it. Here is the original that came with the Takara Tomy version of the toy. Now this is no shabby piece in and of itself. The paint is done really crisply, and what have we got there? Blue, yellow, silver and red on white. So it's pretty high end to begin with, and just looking at this component, I would not have been inclined to be bothered changing it if I was XT Toys, but they did a good job as well. So really you could just leave whichever one is your own personal preference. I think in the end I do like the new one better, so I changed it out. Now primarily I think the reason they did change it out was they were looking for a way to attach a new foot. So you can see this is the new foot here, and it's on a relatively stiff ball joint, so you get a good range of motion. If you look at it from the side, it is very open. There's quite a big gap in there, so it's not very attractive from that point of view. But who looks at it from the inner leg anyway? That's pretty uncommon. But again, this is not an essential upgrade. The original foot, which it's pulled in here at the moment, this original foot did look really good to begin with, and I think the main reason that they justified putting this new foot on was for the ankle tilts. But you know, not every figure really needs ankle tilts, but I guess this is for those perfectionists. One downside of having the original foot transformed up into the leg in robot mode is that you don't get enough clearance to really close this flap properly. So I mean, it's got a little tab on it from where it used to peg in, but you can see you really can't make it reach there, and that's because this kind of ledge in the molding bumps into where the foot is. Now, you could just trim that off and then you'd be able to shut it. In robot mode it would look good. In vehicle mode it may have some impact on where the pieces lie. Moving the focus just up the leg a bit, you can see this is the back of the thigh section, and unlike current day mainline offerings, this is not hollow, and that's because each one of the little hollow sections, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on each leg, came with an insert that you could push in, and it fully fixes up that hollowness and it sticks in with friction. Now you can see a stress line on this one up here. This is not the fault of X2 Toys. I did this. My Takara toy had a little bit of flash on it, and I saw it before I went in there. I thought, will I trim it or just try to force it in? I tried to force it in and it did go in, but it produced that stress line. So by no means is this a defect from the manufacturer. That's all my doing. Moving up to the backpack, this is quite nice. Now originally there was nothing here. I'm going to try and just pop that off. Now originally it was just open like this, and this little red thing was screwed onto here. Now this red nut, for want of a better word, was what holds the cab in on vehicle mode, so you can't separate the cab from the trailer. So now that that's off, you can separate it. In robot mode it really doesn't have much impact at all. This bit here is just held in with friction, and it does a nice job. It has two flaps. If I can just get my fingers in there. This one has what looks like some kind of tiny little jet engine, although I don't know how useful that would be for such a big robot as Ultra Magnus. Maybe it could just break his fall a bit if he's jumping from heights, I'm not sure. And the top one can also open, but there's nothing in there. You could use that to store some of his extra faces that this set does come with. Now, if you're familiar with this toy, you're going to be looking at that head and thinking, it looks exactly the same. And that's because this is the original head. My preference is I like the original head. I find the new head is just a little bit, it's just not as good. Like, it's a good head, which I'm going to show you right now. I mean, it looks good, but I prefer the taper on these horns. The new one is just straight up and down. I mean, that's very G1, so if you like it to be true to Ultra Magnus's original form, then yeah, by all means go with this. I like the taper, and also I found that even though the faces slot in nicely, there's always just that little gap above the eyes, which I could see. It bothered me, and I didn't really want to see that, so I didn't use it. Now this face, which is on this new head, if I hold it right next to him, should look pretty much the same. And I think that's the original face. So you get that one, and you can just pull it out like this. My finger's a little bit too big to do it. It goes straight frontwards, like just straight out like that. It's got those little tabs in there. I'm gonna pop this one in. And that's basically the mouth just slightly open. So only ever so slightly different from the first one. And finally, this white Optimus masked face. Now, a lot of people are going to like that. And I mean, even myself, I really do like that. And I think it helps differentiate Ultra Magnus on the shelf from a lot of your other Ultra Magnuses that don't necessarily have that mask. But even though as a toy I like it, I want the character how I feel I normally see it, so I go with this original head still. The next big component that X2 Toys have replaced is in the arm. So you can see here, the bulk of this arm is a big blue panel, and I'm just going to fold this out of the way. It's held on with like a friction pin, just pegs in here. But this blue section, along with the fist, is actually a replacement part. So I'm going to show you the original, just so you can get a feel for it. Now, I like the original. I think that in some ways the original is better. Like this big flat head steel pin in there looks better than the hollow head pin, which is in the new piece. And the hands are very, very similar. The only main difference is that the old hand has a different setup so that you can't peg this weapon into it, the new weapon, whereas the new hand has a bigger peg hole there, so it accommodates the new gun. The new gun really is bulky. It's got quite a heft to it, and I like how they've got screw covers there, so you can see where there were obviously 2 screws in there, and they've covered that up. That's nice attention to detail. Another 2 here, which I didn't notice before. And like you got this, you can flip that down. Not really sure why that flips down, to be honest, but either way, to hold it, it just goes into the hand, and this little peg or tab just tabs into the back of the wrist. So I haven't seen that before in any other toys, but it works really well. I mean, that's a solid connection, and he's definitely strong enough to hold it. And that looks fantastic. Look at that. And even down the barrel, you can see in there it's hollow in the barrel. I like my guns to be molded so that it looks like they could actually have a hollow barrel. Some of the mainline toys don't always do that. The gun can actually extend like this, and once it does extend, you'll see it's got another little wrist peg in there, so it should in theory be able to be held in 2 hands. Haven't tried it yet, but let's give it a go now. So one hand going in, maybe not. So I was wrong about that. That extra peg is really so he can have the Magnus hammer. You can just peg his rocket launchers onto the side as you would with the original gun. And that explains why the handle folds up as well, so he can have a more mace-like looking weapon. That's pretty cool. He's not going to drop that. It's a very good connection, good solid connection with that weapon, so it's done pretty well. And combined with those ankle tilts, it does definitely make him more poseable. Look at that. That's pretty decent pose. That A stance like that, his weapon, he can swing it away however he likes. The original gun's still here, so let's have a look at the original. Now that is way more hollow. Definitely, I mean, it's okay compared to some toys we get these days, but really look at that. That is shit ugly. I can't stand that. But, I mean, it never hurts to have more guns, so I guess you could give that to him in one hand if you wanted him to wield his hammer in the other hand. Those boots do add, I feel like, a tiny little bit of height, so let's do some size comparisons. Here's Hegemon. This is an original Hegemon, so he doesn't have any add-ons for his height. A little bit short. I would get out my Orion, but I don't know where that is at the moment, to be honest. I'm thinking about getting one of those new downsized KO MP10s. That would go good with this figure. At the moment, what else can I show is this. Toy World's version of Grimlock. What's his name? Grimshell, maybe? I can't really remember. I think these guys look good together. You know, both of them are supposed to be big guys, and these two figures just look just about right. The height is spot on. In fact, these have been on my shelf together for a few weeks now. I'm so happy with how they go together. And here's a comparison with Mechaform Sky Guardian. So he's a little bit short compared to Magnus, maybe. I'm not really decided on that, but I do think they look good together. Maybe it's because both of them have elements of white, or maybe it's because Takara's plastic is a little bit shiny and so is the Mechaform toy. But again, this guy and Grimshell and Magnus, they've been on my shelf all week, and I think he looks good together. It's like ready for action. Once you get it transformed into vehicle mode, there is really only minimal interference from the new parts. So you can see in here, this is the new foot section, and it sits there in the back. Now, I don't have the instructions. I just chucked the whole box out as soon as I got it. Maybe it shows some better way to put it, but I don't really see how it could really go many other places other than that. Maybe I've done it a little bit sloppily, but you do end up with feet that have to go somewhere. So the big up is that you can pull off this trailer. So you've got Magnus's cab, which is nice. I mean, especially on the Takara version, this is done pretty nice. I like the paint apps on this. I think it's an attractive mold. And now that you can pull it off, I think that adds to the play. I mean, it can just make that bend there, so there is just enough clearance to be useful to play with. It does catch sometimes, but that catching is nothing to do with any of the add-on parts. I guess you do lose the ramp functionality, because now with these feet attached, when you go to lower the ramp, you've got all this crap at the back. So, I mean, if you're going to roll cars onto here, that's, I guess, out of the question. My final thoughts. Very, very pleased. Now, if I had to say the way to go, get the Takara Legends Ultra Magnus. I think it's pretty nice looking. I'm not sure I'm crazy about the red thighs. If you have the money, buy the Hasbro one and swap out the thighs. The X2 Toys set, it's a nice add-on, and if you're looking to make this Ultra Magnus into the Ultra Magnus that you're going to have on your shelf, then yeah, pick that up as well. But I don't think it adds that much. The figure is a good figure to start off with, and it just tweaks it a little bit, especially the gun. I think that's one of the main differences that you notice. And I mean, the other parts, they're just little bonuses, you know. I think the price I paid for the two combined from Chimungmung was a little bit less than $100. And maybe the Legends figure part of that price was about $70. So, I mean, you're definitely paying for these little bits and pieces. So if you don't want them, don't feel obliged to get them. But I think as a package, this is it now for me. I'm not looking for another Ultra Magnus. I'm pretty happy with this. I've got my masterpiece Ultra Magnus to be like the be-all and end-all that just, if I have to have a display piece, looks good. And now I've got this guy for playing with. Well, not playing with, but, you know, putting on the shelf with the toys that are meant to be played with. So, I mean, I can imagine that a third party might come along and do something marginally better, but this is like 95% of the way there as far as I'm concerned. I don't really need any third party stuff to try and beat this, because this is good enough. Now, I know someone will probably do it and I'll probably buy it, but I'm not looking. I'm very satisfied with this, and I can fully recommend anyone going out there and buying it. One thing I forgot, I just want to mention, because I know there's some people out there who may not have bought this toy and just don't realize it. This chest can open up, and you've got Alpha Trion piloting Ultra Magnus. Now, I know it's not that much of a big deal. If you like Ultra Magnus, fine, but that is just so awesome. He's a mech suit. Sorry, I had to throw that in there because I love that feature, and you know, if you didn't know that, you'd thank me for it. Also, I came so close to not buying this. The only reason that I turned around and did buy it after it had been out for so long is the Titans Return Fortress Maximus. That got me so into the current crop of stuff. Everything I've got on order or bought so far has made me so happy that I just backtracked a little bit and picked this up. I'm so glad that I did. Should have the Optimus in hand very soon, the Titans Returns Optimus, so I'll review that when it comes out. I'm odeean, thanks for watching.